Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel. This is Business Connections Live with Steve Hyland.
Hello there, welcome along to Business Connections Live, the program for entrepreneurs, SMEs and business owners. Now, in today's show, we're going to be discussing how to buy a business. I mean, maybe it's a dream that you've had, maybe you've seen an organisation and you've thought to yourself, do you know what, I would love to run that. But is it a case of reaching deep into your own pocket, finding the cash, talking to all your family, all your friends, going to the bank manager, cashing in maybe your pension, and you think, right, I've done it, I've got this big bucket of cash, I'm going to buy that business and make a success of it? Or is there another way? Joining me in the studio today is Jonathan J, entrepreneur and business owner and buyer as well. Jonathan, lovely to have you with us on the show today.
Thank you.
What was that a good kind of summary of what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, sure. I think the misconception that people have is that to buy a business, they need to remortgage the house, they need to cash in the pension, as you said, and find as much money as possible, give it to the seller of the business. The seller of the business gives them the shares, the swap has been done, and then they've got this business that might or might not work. So it's very, very high risk for people, and that's why a lot of people don't do it. So I work with business owners who want to grow their business via acquisition, but quite typically have been held back because of that misconception. They feel as though they would put everything on the line, but there is a better way of doing it.
Well, we're going to be talking about the better way and how to position yourself, but if there was one piece of advice that you would give someone who is maybe already identified a business, they may well be working in it, so a management buyout kind of thing, I don't know whether that applies, but they may be working in a business, they're identified. What's the one piece of advice you would give them, and what do you think, two questions, what's the biggest mistake that people assume?
Okay, so the best piece of advice is to get educated on how to buy a business. Don't rely upon your accountant, don't rely upon your lawyer, rely upon yourself and your knowledge of how to buy a company. And that's absolutely critical, because otherwise, if you just follow everyone else's advice, you will be remortgaging your house and giving all of your life savings to the seller of the business, which may be a terrible, terrible mistake. So that's the best piece of advice I could give. The mistake that people make is thinking that they can't do it. So they see a business for sale, maybe it's a competitor, maybe it's a complementary business, maybe it's part of their supply chain, and they say to themselves, if I buy that business, I can go from $1 million a year in revenue to $2 million a year in revenue. That might have taken me 10 years if I was going to be running more Facebook ads, hiring more salespeople, but I can do it this year. And then they talk themselves out of it because they feel that their ability to buy a business is completely determined by how much money they have in their bank account, and that simply is not true. So once you change your mindset around this and you realize that with the right knowledge, the right skills, the right team, you can buy a business, it means that you can do far more than you thought possible, and it doesn't rely upon the size of your bank account.
All right, then that means that somebody somewhere, apart from the actual buyer, is taking the risk. And I know we're kind of jumping headfirst into the pool on this one, but where is the risk then? Is it a case that you're identifying it? Obviously, you've got to give some guarantees, surely, to the people who are paying the money somewhere along the line.
Well, so are you saying that then you're borrowing the money from someone and that person...
Is that the process, or am I misunderstanding that?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's entirely possible to de-risk an acquisition where the payment that you make for the business is dependent upon the performance of that business. So if the performance goes up, then you effectively pay more for it. But if it goes down, then you pay less for it, so you're never out of pocket. And de-risking a transaction is really critical, because in the scenario we discussed a moment ago where you put your house on the line, that is the ultimate risk. And anyone who works with me will know that that is an absolute no-no. We never do that. Now, let's say you're buying a business where the situation is that the seller absolutely has to have certain things happen in a certain order at a certain price at a certain time, and you cannot de-risk it, in which case you move on. and this is called deal flow. Deal flow is where you have more than one deal on the table at any one time. And when you're negotiating, if you've got other options, your strongest negotiating position is always to be able to walk away. Just like viewing property. You don't view one property, fall in love with it and have to buy it. You view lots of properties and then you have a spread of opportunity, and then you can say no if the price isn't right on one of those properties. It's the same with business.
Do you sometimes see that people actually end up moving away from what their actual business is, and that their business becomes the purchasing of other businesses? So that is actually what they turn into. They become into someone who is acquiring businesses, and that's their business. Is that what happened to you?
No, absolutely, yes. And it has happened with me as well, because I started off as the operator of a business, and I was the person who turned up at the office first in the morning, last to leave in the evening, went into the office at the weekends because that was the only time I could get some work done without being interrupted. So I was working 6-7 days a week, earning less than my staff, and that's always a galling moment when everyone else gets paid and you're the last, or you don't get paid at all. So I was very much an operator, and then I sold a company. I sold a company in 1999, and I made more money on the sale of that business than I ever did from running the business. I thought, well, there's got to be something in this. And then I did it again, and then I did it again, and then I realized that the fastest way to get to the point of selling a business was to make it big enough to sell. So obviously the first few years you don't anticipate it's going to be that large unless you start buying other businesses. So I made my businesses bigger by buying other companies, rolling them up, and then selling them to larger, to private equity firms in some cases, and sometimes even buying from private equity firms and then selling them back again.
That sounds an incredible formula to actually do. Is it the norm, do you think, or is it the exception what you're doing now? Because you were saying earlier on that if you talk to your accountant, if you take business advice, they will say put your house on the line. But this is a very different approach, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually train lawyers and accountants how to do this because it's a very specialised set of skills, and it's very important to get this right. You need to know what you're doing, which is why the knowledge is just so important. But for many people, they say, well, I'm not making much money out of the business now, but I'll make money in 10 years' time when I sell it. Well, why don't you make that selling accelerated? Let's move it closer to now. Let's not wait 10 years of not making very much money. Why would you do that? Life is too short. Let's buy another business and make that business that you've got now twice the size, and then we can sell it this year or next year rather than waiting 10 years. And then let's do it again, and let's do it again, and let's do it again. So instead of waiting for retirement to hit that moment where the money drops into your bank account when you sell the company, and everyone then hopes that that's enough money to last them through their retirement, let's do it this year. Let's do it next year. Let's just keep on doing it and become a deal maker as opposed to a business operator.
When it comes to the kind of businesses that we're talking about, before we get into the detail, because you just mentioned there are checklists that really, what kind of businesses are we talking about? Does it matter? Is it regardless of the size, or are we differentiating between a 5 to 10, a £1 million turnover business? I take it this isn't suitable for the one-man bands, the smaller operations, the ma and pa businesses.
What, to buy?
Well, for them to be even contemplating buying other businesses.
Oh no, you can be a one-person operation and buy another company. So if your challenge has been accelerating your growth, hiring the right people, getting the management in place, and you can't seem to get past go, well, let's go and find a company that's got that in place already. So I always say to people, buy a company that's been trading for at least 5 years, because 80% of businesses don't last 5 years. So let's go beyond the 5 years, and let's go for a business that you understand. So you don't have to learn the business model and learn how the business works. So again, you can jump ahead of the learning curve. So let's find something that's established, find something that you know, and then if you've got the knowledge, got the skills, got the team, and got the desire, let's go and buy it without risking any of your own cash. Now, when I say it like that, people always say to me, well,
it just feels uncomfortable. It nearly feels, it does feel like a get-rich-quick scheme, doesn't it? And I'm sure it isn't.
Well, but when you say that, it sounds like something that's,
Would you like to double your income in 12 months? So we'll show you how.
But the thing is, the people who make the most money in business are doing exactly what we've just talked about. They're not turning up at the office every day. They've moved from being an operator into being a deal maker. And of course, we understand how the world of private equity works. What I'm saying here is that the SME business owner can become their own private equity firm and make acquisitions. Sometimes people feel, though, that it's cheating. They say, well, aren't you meant to work for years and years without earning any money? Aren't you meant to slave away, working the long hours and being paid less than everyone else? And I say, no. I've done that. I know that's not something to be proud of. It's not virtuous to be broke. If you've got the entrepreneurial get up and go to start a business, you've got the entrepreneurial get up and go and buy another business. And it's not cheating to say, you know what, I don't want to work for 10 years to achieve my goal. Let's work for 12 months by buying a couple of other companies to achieve that goal. So in actual fact, you just speed up your entire business life.
Sounds really interesting. I don't know about you. I mean, there is that uncomfortable feeling, I suppose, when you first hear this. You feel there is something, maybe not ethically, it is completely right. And what you're saying, practically, it sounds like it's something that is the right way to be doing this. So what do you think the challenges are then? Are the challenges to have the right mental attitude towards this, to understand where you're going to go, who you talk to, who your advisors are?
Yeah, so first of all, it's attitude. It's believing that you can do it. So it's attitude and confidence. You've got to have the confidence that you know what you're doing, which leads us into number 2, which is having the knowledge and the skills. That's very, very important. So if you've got the confidence, you've got the knowledge and skills, you need the right team around you. So the right accountant, the right lawyer, the right due diligence expert, the right HR person, the right tax person, the right team to support you, because you can't do it all by yourself. And then you need deal flow. You need to have deals. You need to have businesses who are interested in selling their business to you. And I never go to business brokers. I never go to adverts on websites or in newspapers. I go and source businesses myself. I get them to come to me. So right now, for example, my deal flow is 150. I've got about 150 businesses in my pipeline. Some we've already said no to. About 60 I've sat down with face-to-face like this to have a conversation, and the rest are in various other phases of development. So when you've got deal flow, which can be just 6 businesses, you actually become a better deal maker, because the first business you look at seems great until you look at business number 2 and business number 3, and you realize actually business number 3 is the one that you want. So this is all the things you need to be able to do to be successful at buying a business.
Well, I don't know about you. The first 12 minutes of this programme has really given me some ideas. I hope it has. Let's hope it sparked maybe the imagination in you as well, and maybe that desire as well to sit up and maybe listen to the rest of the programme as well. We're going to be covering some really interesting subjects. We're going to be looking at the skills needed to buy a business. We're going to go through those. We've kind of already alluded to them. Where to find a business for sale. So where do you go to? Is it the companies? Are the directories? What is the right way of finding a business for sale? Why people want to sell their business? How do you identify that, and why is that important to find out? How to structure the deal and how buying a business might be the key to the biggest payday of your life. It sounds absolutely engaging, doesn't it? Do not go away. More from Jonathan J in just a moment on this edition of Business Connections Live. Well, you're watching Business Connections Live. Great to have you with us. We're live here on a Monday, as always. Let's go back a week now, shall we? On last week's show, we talked to Steve Mills about how to get to £100,000 in 6 months or less. Now, it kind of ties in, but maybe the best way to do it is just to go buy the company. So Steve Mills on the show last week. It was a great show with Steve. Steve always good value for money. If you want to watch the entire programme, all you've got to do is go to our website at businessconnectionslive.com. But in the meantime, here are the key highlights from last week's edition of Business Connections Live. Now, on today's show, we're going to be discussing how to get to £100,000 in 6 months or less. Is it a pipe dream, or could it be really done? Can it be really done in your business? Joining me in the studio today is an old friend of the programme. I use the term old loosely. Yes, joining me in the studio is Steve Mills. Steve, lovely to have you back on the programme.
I think the reality is often it's not so much that it's difficult to do, it's that people underperform. You know, that's ultimately what it's about. But I really believe that the businesses have a real tough time getting over that first hump called getting to 100,000. The simple truth is that the failure to implement. Marketing's a little bit like a wheelbarrow. So nothing happens until somebody picks it up and pushes it forward. Learning new stuff makes no difference to your business whatsoever. It's the application of what you learn that makes the difference. It's when you take action. We send out an email or an in-mail through LinkedIn, so they get 2 emails from us, and then we call them. That's our system. So our opportunity and our objective is to get that first meeting. Well, I think it starts by really understanding the maths behind it, the key numbers. I think it starts at the end and work your way back. So if I've got an average unit of sale of £1,000, so I know I need 100 of those to get to my 100 grand. So I need 100 sales in the next 6 months to achieve that. So I can work out then how many sales that is per week. So in order to achieve that, how many meetings, if that's my structure, that I have a meeting with somebody, how many meetings do I need? So if I needed, let's say for example, 2 sales per week, and to achieve that I need 5 meetings because I know my conversion rate, and then to achieve that I need 10 leads, and to achieve that I need to do X amount of posts or calls or so on and so forth. So you start with the end in mind and work your way backwards. Work with thousands of businesses over 25 years now, and I see the same things all the time. People, A, they don't understand their numbers, B, they don't do anything to improve those numbers. I just made some numbers up. How do I know that I need to get 5 meetings to achieve 2 sales? Well, I need to know that number. I just guessed at that because that might be average. But actually, what is the actual number in my business? And then the next question I would ask somebody is, how can you reduce that? Instead of having 5 meetings and converting 2, how could you improve the conversion to 3? Because if you did, you'd grow your business by 50%. In my experience, with most businesses, we've all got low-hanging fruit. We've got leads that we haven't really followed up as well as we could. We've got LinkedIn contacts that we've not been in touch with. We've got past customers who bought from us perhaps 6 months ago, a year ago, perhaps 5 years ago, that we've not really kept in touch with properly on a regular basis, and we haven't spoken to them for a while. We've probably also got referrals. If you took 100 customers that I've got right now, and I said, right, okay, well, at the moment, out of those 100, let's say 15 of them have given me a referral. Maybe there's the odd one at the bottom that wouldn't for whatever reason. Nobody's perfect, but there's a big trench of people in there that would give me a referral. They've just never been asked to do so. Okay, Steve Mills here from Crofton Limited. Our website is www.stevemills.co, not .com, just to clarify. What I'd like to ask people to do is to take a look at our website with a view to coming on a program that we've developed. It's a 9-week program to help you to get from either startup or from a business who's been going along for, 6 months or perhaps up to a year, just going along, doing okay, turning over a small amount of money, but would really be committed to growing your business. And we want to help you to get from wherever you are to 100,000 in 6 months. And that's what the program's all about. So it'll be good to get people interested in that, because it really is possible, Steve.
Really great show on last week's edition of Business Connections Live. Steve Mills there. Don't forget, there's a whole host of Steve Mills programs. He's done about 3 or 4, looking at everything from LinkedIn to growing your business. The man is very, very clever about putting systems together. So if you are a small organization, you're looking for a way to connect with your customers, to engage them, to raise the profile of your business, then do watch the programs. Just go to the website at businessconnectionslive.com. And by the way, if you're enjoying today's program, you think to yourself, do you know, I'd like to have a program like this. Maybe at the moment you're sending out newsletters, and every month you send a newsletter out. Why don't you turn your readers into viewers? Why not turn your newsletter into a TV program like this one and send that out to your clients, to your customers, to your prospects, and engage them a little bit more. Show them your personality. Show them who you are. Tell them the kind of things that they need to know. So why don't you get in contact with us here at Business Connections Live? It's very easy to actually do that, to make a show of your own and to have the reality of a show like this one. All you got to do is drop us an email if you wish to this address, studio at businessconnectionslive.com. But better still, why don't you pick the phone up and give us a call on 01784 256 777. Don't forget as well, you can follow our stream of consciousness on Twitter at BCL Business TV. You can comment and also watch the programs as well on our Facebook page. But the best place to go to watch over 300 hours of great business advice is to go to the website at businessconnectionslive.com. You're watching Business Connections Live. We're live here on a Monday. My guest on today's show is Jonathan Jay. He is the man that goes out there and he will help you, he will teach you, he will show you the right way to acquire other businesses, but to do it with a reduced risk. Jonathan, I mean, just while that was on as well, we should have been watching Steve, but we were all having a bit of a chat because it seems to be a fantastic opportunity for individuals. How did you get into it?
Well, it was when I discovered that selling a business can put more money into your bank account than actually running a business. And not that there's anything wrong with making money while you run a business as well, but I thought I can accelerate my business life, where most people, they run one business for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. They sell it just as they're coming up to retirement, and that's the moment that they cash in. That's the moment that they can actually see a big difference in their bank account. And that happened to me in my 20s, and I thought, well, why don't I just keep on doing this? And then I realized that I could accelerate the process, not by starting businesses, running them and selling them. I could buy businesses, run them for a very short period of time, maybe to fix them, maybe to make some changes to make them more successful, more profitable in the interim, and then sell them. And I now teach other people how to do it.
What the skills do you think you have and the skills that people need to have to do that? Because I suppose the important part is you buy the business and then you fix them. It's that bit there that's pretty important, isn't it? The fixing of them.
Quite often the fixing I get other people to do, because I may be not the best person to do the fixing. I'm not a great management HR person, so I always get people to look after the other people, and I hire in the skills where I need it. I think the skills that you need to buy a business are belief in yourself and confidence, and that comes from having the knowledge. I've acquired the knowledge through experience, through doing this for a very long time, for 2 decades, but you can accelerate that knowledge. You can learn it faster than it took me to learn it, I think. But if you've got the knowledge and the confidence and the experience, and you've got the deal flow, you've got the opportunities coming across your desk, then buying a business can take you from here to here, practically overnight, certainly in a matter of months. So if you've been running a $300,000 a year business for the last 5 years and you're frustrated that it hasn't hit the 7 figures, because I think most business owners like to hit that magical million, and you think, well, how can I do this? Well, the fastest way is to go out and find a business that's maybe doing 700,000. Don't forget, you don't have to buy a business smaller than you. You can buy a business bigger than you. Then you go from 300 plus the 700 to $1 million overnight.
And it does make a big difference. Okay, the big question then is, and the people are going to be thinking about this, and it's got to be, where do you find businesses for sale? There are people out there, you already mentioned it earlier on, you may find adverts for businesses that are up for sale.
Yeah.
There are also agents that are out there who are pushing businesses out. We even get emails, don't we? Would you like to sell your business? What's your exit plan? Where do you go, and what's your advice to people who are looking for other businesses?
Well, I never go to business brokers, because business brokers are the equivalent of estate agents in the property world. So if you go and view a property with an estate agent, one of the first things they will always tell you is how 3 other people are viewing the property that afternoon, and then you've got to sharpen your pencil, you've got to put in a better offer, raise your offer, and I don't like being in that situation. Not because I don't like competition. In fact, actually, I quite like competition, but not when it comes to things like that. So I don't like being in an auction, a blind auction with other people. So I go what we call off-market. So I don't go via the websites or via the brokers. I go directly to business owners. So I find lots and lots of business owners in a sector that I'm interested in. I contact them and say, I'm a private investor. I'm interested in buying a business in whatever sector it might be. Would you contact me if you would like to have a chat? Because I don't know what your personal circumstances are. I don't know what your intentions are for the business. But if you've been thinking of moving on or retiring or taking it a little easier or disposing of the business in some way, then would you please contact me? And then people contact me either by email or by phone. And the conversation typically goes along the lines of, quite remarkable that I received your letter this morning, because this weekend I was talking with my husband about selling the business, and then your letter arrived in the office today, and I wondered whether we could have a chat. So I have lots of conversations like that, and that's how I find the businesses for sale. So not the traditional route of the brokers, but a far more successful route.
How important is it to target the right market sector? Do you specialise in particular areas? And is it right for somebody that they should only be targeting a sector that they have the knowledge of?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely critical to get the targeting right, because I do meet some people who say, I'm just going to buy businesses in very different sectors. I heard what you say, Jonathan, about hiring people in who've got knowledge in a certain sector, and they say, well, I'm going to buy a restaurant here and a nightclub over there, and this manufacturing business. And I'm not sure if that's the right way to start. I think the right way to start is to buy a business that you understand, buy a business that you know something about, which is typically the business that you're in at the moment. So if you're in the publishing world, buy another publishing business. So buy something that you're familiar with, because then you don't have the learning curve of trying to figure out how to make the business work. What I love is the ability, when you know a sector, to look at a business that's maybe a little lackluster in its performance, maybe it's seen better days, and you look at it and you go, I know why it isn't performing as well as it could. If we just change the pricing model, if we collected the debtors a little faster, if we just made some tweaks to the business model based upon our experience and our knowledge, then that business won't be doing 250,000 a year, it'll be doing 400,000 a year. So therefore you can buy the business, and this is quite a critical point, you can buy the business on a valuation of where it is now, knowing that in a short space of time, the business will be performing at a high level. And therefore you can add value in that gap, and then you can sell it on a valuation of it now performing at the higher level. So you buy it a low price and you sell at a high price. If
in many cases it is that easy to turn a business around, why do you think the owners of these businesses aren't doing it themselves?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great question. And actually it's a question I'm asked a lot, because if you really just have to make some tweaks, new website, do some e-commerce,
collect the debtors,
collect the money in faster. Maybe the staff, there's too many staff. You've got Marjorie in accounts who gets the payroll wrong every month. Why are we paying Marjorie £40,000 a year to get it wrong? Marjorie might have to go, and let's outsource the payroll. I tell you why. It's because Marjorie's the mother-in-law. And because there's so much personal stuff in that business. There are so many historic ways of doing things. We've always done it that way. People don't like changing, and they don't like to make changes. And sometimes business owners are so tired of their business, so frustrated, they've just had enough, and they want to move on. It's not about the money anymore. It's about the freedom. They want to emigrate. They want to spend more time with their children, their grandchildren. They just want to get out of the business. And I've owned businesses that I've hated. And I know what it feels like. As an operator, I'm thinking, I hate this business. It's not about the money. I just want to hand someone the keys and walk away from it, which is why it's also possible to do deals where you buy a business for nothing or virtually nothing.
Well, we're going to talk about that in just a moment. What about valuation when it comes? You kind of mentioned it there. How do we go about valuing the business? How do we actually see its true worth? I know we've got to do due diligence, and obviously the owner will be asking for the maximum amount and you'll be willing to pay the minimum amount. How do you value it?
Well, there are two approaches to this. So I look at a business and I decide what it's worth to me. So I figure out what it would be worth to me now and what it would be worth to me in the future. And that's a very personal thing. So I would establish really what I feel I can do to fix the business if it needs fixing, and usually it does need a bit of tweaking. So I work out what I think it's worth to me. And then I go to the owner and I say, what do you feel the business is worth? Now, I have to explain, there's a whole preamble to this. It's not straight in with that question. So I want to set expectations. And I want to find out what it's worth to them and what they want to achieve once they have sold the business. And then there's going to be a gap, isn't there, between what they value it at and what I value it at. However, there might not be a gap. There might not be a gap because sometimes the business owner has very low expectations. They know all the things that are wrong with it and they say, well, no one's going to buy this business for very much. Where I'm seeing possibility and opportunity, they've kind of just had enough of the whole thing. And maybe my valuation is actually higher than theirs, in which case, whichever number they say, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with it. And if you think about it, they're happy with it. They gave me the number. This is not a negotiation. People always think when you buy a business, you have to arm wrestle across the table. You have to negotiate the price. You have to table an offer. Two things I never do. I never negotiate and I never put forward an offer. Now, business brokers will say, table an offer, put forward an offer. No, that's why I don't work through.
So how do you move it forward then at that case? If you're in negotiations, if that's what it is, at what point do you say, look, that's how much it is, there's the envelope, what's in that envelope is how much I'm going to offer you?
Okay, well, I approach it slightly differently because this is a collaborative process. What I want to understand is, what do you want to achieve? Does money play a part in that? And if so, how much? And then I can go back to my figures over here to see whether that's possible. If it's possible, Steve, I'll agree with you. I'll say, yes, we can do that. If it's not possible, I will tell you why it's not possible and allow you the opportunity of revising the valuation. Do you see how we're doing this? It's not me saying, oh, £100 and, oh, well, okay, what about 150? No, 150? £200. You don't want £200? 250. That's just crazy. That is the poorest negotiating stance anyone could possibly take. And I never get into that game. So I tell sellers, look, I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to discover what you want and to find out whether it's something that we can achieve. And if it is, we'll do it. If not, we'll move on.
So it's the other way around.
Absolutely.
Jonathan, more from Jonathan in just a moment. The whole process of this is absolutely fascinating. Okay, so that's where you go then to get to find out the businesses that are for sale, and also to a certain extent why people want to sell their business. We'll be looking at that in just a moment. Well, you've really kind of alluded to that already, haven't you? It's maybe lifestyle changes, maybe they've had enough, maybe just want to move on. And to a certain extent, we've kind of looked at how to structure a deal. More detail on that in just a moment on this edition of Business Connections Live. You're watching Business Connections Live. Great to have you with us here on a Monday, as always. Let's get some key takeaways from another one of our programmes. What's the big deal? The question is about LinkedIn. If you go back and watch Philip Calvert, he was on the program on the 23rd of April 2018 last year. Business Connections Live 224. A great show to watch. Now, most people have a LinkedIn profile, good, but very few have a clear understanding of why they're on the site in the first place. So on this programme, it's a wide-ranging interview with our LinkedIn expert, Philip Calvert. He busts the myths that LinkedIn is just for recruiters and job seekers. And here are the key takeaways from that edition of Business Connections Live.
Thank you very much, Steve. Well, the key takeaways. First of all, my name is Phil Calvert. I'm a speaker and a strategist on LinkedIn, and I help businesses to get more leads, whether that's on the free version of LinkedIn or the premium version. The key takeaways that I would really recommend people do is, first of all, spend some time thinking about why are you on LinkedIn. Most people dabble around a bit and they don't really have a clear view of what they want to achieve. So spend some time on that. Don't skimp on it, but write down why you're on LinkedIn and what you want to achieve. Next thing you need to do is to fully complete your profile. And that means spending possibly a couple of hours on it and regularly tweak it. Think about those keywords as well. What do you want to be known for? If someone's typing into the search box on LinkedIn, we want to make sure that you come out top of the list. So really think about that. And I think the third takeaway, really, really important, this one, is to treat LinkedIn as though you're talking to people, human beings in the real world. Don't look at LinkedIn and indeed other social media as some kind of shortcut that will do your work for you. So when you're connecting with people, always use their name. Always look at their profile, see if you can find something that you've got in common with them, whether it's a personal interest, maybe it's some mutual connections, maybe it's somewhere that you used to work. Refer to that always. And what I tend to find is when I personalize the message and when I refer to something that we've got in common, my acceptance rate that I get on connection requests it's almost 100%. So those are my key takeaways, and I really hope you find them useful.
Philip Calvert there on Business Connections Live. Do check out the entire program. Don't forget, go to the website. It's over 300 hours of great business advice. Quite a lot of programs actually on LinkedIn. In fact, coming up very shortly in the near future, Angus Grady's going to be on the program as well. He is the LinkedIn Unlocker, and he's got a great show for you lined up. I was talking to Angus last week. Really good show. So if you're using LinkedIn at the moment to prospect, do you use LinkedIn at all to prospect?
I use LinkedIn a lot. I found a lot of deals on LinkedIn. I'm contacted maybe twice a day by businesses that are interested in selling. So it's a great tool.
Great tool. So that's why you should be finding out more and using LinkedIn more as part of your business, particularly when it comes to prospecting and growing your business as well. You're watching Business Connections Live. My guest on today's show is Jonathan Jay. We're talking about how to go about buying a business, and sometimes doing it without any risk at all, practically to you. Maybe just reputation. You got reputations at risk?
Well, I mean, if you've given something your best go, I mean, no one wins them all, do they?
See, an honest view. You can go and find out more about the Dealmakers Academy if you go onto Jonathan's website. There we go. Here it is. How to buy a 1 million plus business with no money down. 4-hour seminar. You're doing this up and down the country. Venues London, Manchester and Birmingham. You reserve your seat and go and find out more and actually listen to the whole presentation. There's a free paperback book that you can download as well to claim your book. Just go to the website. Global Dealmakers Academy membership, where you're going to get that monthly video mentoring with Jonathan. Also, you'll find as well that if you link in with him on LinkedIn, he doesn't want loads of people linking in with him just for the sake of it. If you're serious about this, then link in with him. And every couple of days at the moment, there is a really great, informative, instructive video that is going out that will give you advice, give you opinion, maybe just nudge you in the right direction. You can see that the Dealmakers Academy is a great place to go. Learn how to sell or buy and sell a small business. You can do that. How to buy a company, learn about the mastermind groups that they have here, and also really informative blogs as well. How to buy a business in 2019, the signs of a profitable business, the vital steps you must take before you buy a business. And they're just sort of 3 of the titles that are from the blog posts that are on this particular site. So if you want to go along and find out more, just check out Jonathan's site. The web address is
thedealmakersacademy.com.
Dealmakersacademy.com. Okay, let's talk about the deal. How do we structure it? What do we do then? We've gone in there, we've kind of negotiated with somebody for whatever reason they want to sell it. Either they want to move on, they want to put the money in the bank, they want a holiday, they want to retire, they're ill, they're stressed, whatever the reason is. How do you then go about structuring this?
Well, I want to, very selfishly, structure the deal to de-risk it from my position. And some people say to me, Jonathan, surely you should have some risk. Well, why should I? why should I have risk?
See, I suppose that's the bit that makes everybody feel uncomfortable. You're buying somebody else's, but you've got to have some risk, surely.
I don't have to have any risk. If someone wants to have risk, then have risk. There's lots of ways to have risk. I prefer not to have risk. The risk that I have is my time, obviously, my effort, my energy. Possibly there's a reputational risk, but I don't really think that's such a big deal. My goal is to financially de-risk it for myself, which means I will structure the deal in such a way that I never overpay, because that's always a concern that buyers of businesses have. What if we buy the business for X and we discover after 3 months that all these things that are wrong with it that weren't picked up in due diligence, and as a result is only worth half X. Well, you can structure the payments for the business in such a way that they fluctuate dependent upon the success of the business, the performance of the business. Now, from the seller's perspective, this is really good, because from the seller's perspective, if business takes off like they tell you it will, and they always tell you it will, every seller of a business tells you that riches are just around the corner, which begs the question, why are they selling it right now? Why haven't they waited till they've got around the corner and then sell it? But that's another story. So they've just told you how wonderful the future is. Brilliant. Let's tie the payments that they will receive for the business into that future success. So when the business performs really well, they end up with more.
So what you're doing is you're keeping that motivation within the business with them.
Yes, I mean, sometimes the sellers of a business can, not necessarily on purpose, but they can destroy value when they leave. You know, sometimes it's they say the wrong thing to a member of staff and the member of staff moves on as a result. They bump into a client, tell the client how the new owner is going to change everything. The client then cancels their contract. So what you want is them on side. You want them working with you to make that business successful, because that takes the pressure off you as well. And you can tie them in with a consultancy agreement. That's another way of them receiving value for the business that they've sold to you.
So effectively, they're getting their salary still from the business.
As a consultant.
As a consultant, yes. The staff are tied in because you've treated them well and they understand the process. You've maybe given them shares or done something with them.
Absolutely. There could be some sort of bonus scheme, perhaps. So it's about getting everyone on side, because once you've bought this business, you want it to be as successful as possible. So let's get everyone aligned. Let's get everyone pointing in the same direction, and let's all focus on that success. Now, the opposite is also true. Let's say that the owner hasn't been wholly truthful, and it does happen a lot. I don't think that they necessarily are telling you porcupines about the business, but maybe they lie by omission. They don't tell you that that contract is about to be cancelled. They don't tell you something that you might say, well, it's up to you to find out on due diligence, but you don't find out everything in due diligence. So let's tie the success of the business into the payments that we make, but let's also consider what happens if the business goes into a bit of a slump, and tie the payments into that as well. So therefore, the amount they receive for the business reduces by the any sort of potential decline in the company. And this is called an earn-out. And it's not unusual. It's not something I've created or invented. It's how deals are done, because everyone wants to de-risk the deal from their perspective. Now, if we were talking about selling a business today, which is an entirely different conversation, but if we were talking about selling a business, I would be telling you how to de-risk it from the seller's perspective. But as we're talking about buying a business, it's all about de-risking it from the buyer's perspective.
Because you're approaching the deal in that particular manner, does it reduce the number of deals that are available out there?
That's a great observation, actually. Yes, it does, because there are lots of unrealistic sellers who believe that their business is worth a fortune when it isn't. It made a loss last year. How can it be worth £1 million this year? So there's and then they always say, well, Facebook didn't make any money at the start. WhatsApp never made any money. No, your dry cleaning company in Reigate is not WhatsApp with 2 billion users. All right, let's not get confused here. So people have unrealistic expectations. I can't do anything with those people. There are people who want all the money day one or nothing. Can't do that either. And I always say my lawyer won't let me do it, my bankers won't let me do it. It's just not going to happen. And interestingly, those businesses tend to sit on the market for a long time. They're there for years in some cases, until the owner wakes up and says, you know what? No one's going to hand me £500,000 for this business on day one. Maybe I should go back to Jonathan, because Jonathan was actually offering me £500,000. But over a period of time. You know what? If I'd accepted Jonathan's offer 3 years ago, I'd have had that £500,000 in the bank. And for the last 3 years, I could have been sitting on a beach and not thought about this business ever again. So what I offer the seller of a business is a solution to their problem of selling and leaving the business sooner rather than later.
Do you think it is also down to market sector? Are there some market sectors where, is it service industries, is it production, is it different market sectors that are more acceptable when it comes to the kind of thing that you're trying to do?
Yeah, if it's a business that doesn't have any tangible assets, then what?
Because that could be the people within the business, which
Yeah.
actually is the value of the business.
Well, absolutely. The people are the assets and also the liabilities in some cases. So I think it's very important to understand if you've got a business without assets, it's very hard to get bank finance anyway. If you've got a business with assets, so let's say it's you mentioned manufacturing, let's say it's a manufacturing company and it's got equipment and maybe there's a building and it's got those hard assets, items that you can see and feel and touch, then you can finance against those. Maybe not with a bank, but with asset-based finance. So I can buy that manufacturing plant using someone else's money, the asset-based lender, to acquire it, and that means that the seller would walk away with some money on day one, and then there'd be a tail of what we call deferred consideration over a period of 2, 3, 4, 5 years, maybe slightly longer even. So it depends, as you quite rightly say, on the type of business, but the biggest and the most influential aspect of getting a successful deal over the line is the motivation of the seller. If that person doesn't want to sell, isn't really bothered, couldn't care less, then quite frankly, I'm not going to persuade them. I want someone who is going to persuade me to buy it. I don't want to be the person to persuade them to sell it.
That's the deal structure. That's the kind of companies that we're looking at. What about when it comes to buying a business? I mean, you say here the biggest payday of your life. When you went through the process the first time, what was your business actually specialising in?
The very first one was a publishing company. But compared to the next one, which was training and education, which was a very strong multi-million-pound cash deal to a private equity company, it was a wonderful journey, but actually one I could have done several years earlier, knowing what I know now, and I got there faster by buying other companies along the way. So the year that I sold that company, roughly 4 or 5 months earlier, I bought a competitor. And it was a competitor that was struggling, but by buying that competitor, I removed them from the marketplace. Our business took off like a rocket. All the friction was gone. We plateaued for several years at a couple of million, 2.3 million a year. Suddenly, the brakes were off, and we were doing 5 million a year, and that's when I sold it. So if you own a business that doesn't seem to be going anywhere, you just kind of always do the same every year, by buying a competitor, it can take the brakes off and you can just go through the roof.
More from Jonathan in just a few moments' time. I hope you're finding today's program, if you've been thinking about, is there another way to move your business forward, to grow it, and to put that money? Ultimately, I suppose, why are we doing all of this? Is it that are we going to work as a hobby, or are we going to work to make money and to be more comfortable, to have more leisure time? Is that really what you're looking for? Perhaps maybe this is the way, something to be considering. As I said, do go to his website, the Dealmakers Academy. You'll find a lot of information online, but I hope you're finding today's program really interesting as well. You're watching Business Connections Live. Great to have your company as always. Can we just thank all the people who are downloading the program? Don't forget you can watch the program live each and every week across a number of the different live platforms, YouTube, Facebook, blah, 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 blah. But also you can download it as well on a number of the different podcast platforms too, Stitcher, Blueberry and so on. Once you're on those two, you're pretty much everywhere. But of course the big boy that's out there is iTunes, and we'd like to thank the thousands of you that are downloading the program on a regular basis. Please do go to iTunes, find it in your account, and then leave us a nice review on there. It's dead easy to do. All you've got to do is this. Find it in your iTunes account. That's the program, of course. Click on View in iTunes. That's going to take you to a tab within iTunes that says Ratings and Reviews. Now, this is important. We'd like you to leave a really great review about the program, because that will drive other people to watch the program and make the program even more successful for all of us, you included. Write the review. Say how great you thought the advice was from Jonathan J today. Give it 5 stars. And from us to you, it would be a huge thank you. So please do that. Don't forget you can watch the program, as I said, on iTunes, YouTube, a whole host of different platforms, Roku, depending on who you are, where you are in the world, please do download the program and recommend it to your friends, share it, give us a like, subscribe, do all the normal things. That'd be fabulous. In fact, if you buy us, somebody's just in my ear, buy us if you want. Okay, so there you go. That's the ways that you can find out more, not today, please, find out more about Business Connections Live. You're watching Business Connections Live. In the studio today is Jonathan J. We're talking about what it comes to buying a business. You alluded just before the break about there are different considerations when you are selling a business. In a couple of sentences, what are the key things that you need to do if you want to prepare yourself to be for sale?
Well, I think that you've actually said it. It's preparation, because you do not want to be in a situation where a buyer comes along and you're not prepared. And preparation is getting your house in order. It's being really, really smart on the accounts. It's having everything as clean and as straightforward as possible. All the skeletons, all the maybe you're in a premises where the lease has expired. No one's thought to renew the lease. It's all very, very informal. No, get a proper lease. Get all the staff contracted properly. Get all the suppliers contracted properly. So really get all your paperwork and your finances in order, and that's the very best piece of advice I can give anyone.
What are the nightmares that you see when you sometimes go and you see a business that is interesting? You've probably seen them all. Have you got to be strong and go, right, you know, yes, it looked attractive on the outset, but really once I found out a little bit more, once the due diligence has started, I'm just stopping and walking away now? I've
seen nightmares, absolute nightmares, and you wonder how the business has survived so long. It's so badly run. So I have to take a view. Is this something that is worth the additional effort and expenditure to bring it up to scratch? Or quite frankly, are there better opportunities elsewhere? And this is where you have the benefit of deal flow. You can say no to this because you've got all these over here. And I'm quite happy to say no, because why would I put my time and my effort into something that isn't going to pay dividends in the future, quite literally in the future?
Of all of it then, what's the couple of single biggest problems that you come across? Is it sometimes that you talk to the owners of the businesses and while they may be excited at the very beginning, they just don't get what the proposition's all about, they're asking too much? What are the real issues, what are the ones that keep you awake at night, if any? In
terms of the issues that I face when I'm buying a business, it's the unrealistic expectations of the seller. That's what it always seems to come back to. Unrealistic expectations where they have a business that isn't making very much money. It's a lifestyle business, which is absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with a lifestyle business. Lifestyle businesses can be very, very profitable when they're owned by that person. Mm-hmm. Owned by an investor? No, they're not, because I've got to put management in, and the management need to be paid market rate. And maybe the two people who own and run the business do so much, I need 4 people to replace those 2 people because they multitask, because they're talented and they're knowledgeable. So suddenly the business goes from profitable when it's run by the 2 owners to actually unprofitable when you put an additional 2 people in and you start putting a management structure in. But these unrealistic expectations come from when people watch shows like Dragon's Den. And they think everyone's a millionaire when they've got a business that doesn't have any customers and maybe never will. And it just does not work like that. I need to see the cold, hard facts. I'm not interested in the potential. I can't buy the potential. I might be buying it because of the potential, but that's going to be potential that I'm going to uncover due to my investment and my energy and my effort and my time. But I can't pay for this potential. So if someone has a business that's not making any money right now, quite frankly, it's not worth as much as they think it is. And then people say, oh, Facebook, WhatsApp, you know, all these companies that didn't make any money for years. Yes, but they had billions of users. So it's entirely different. I used the example of the laundrette. Does not have billions of users. It just doesn't make any money because it's in the wrong location.
People will look at their lists and they will think that the value is in the list for their business. Do you think that's true?
Well, to a certain degree. But I would say if the value's in the list, why haven't you exploited that value? What, you've waited to sell it to let someone else exploit it? I don't believe you. Come on. So I hear this all the time. And I think you've got to be reasonably hard-nosed about it, simply because you're making business decisions. And I have a lot of fun doing it. I mean, it is the most fun I have ever had. I get a real buzz out of doing this, but you've got to be able to say no as well as being able to say yes.
Is there any other area, do you think, that we should be talking about as well? Because, I mean, it is a challenge. Is it right for everybody? Is it a particular kind of person? You strike me as being quite outgoing. I don't think you'd be shy in a party. Is it for a particular kind of entrepreneur, do you think, doing this, or do you think anybody could do this?
Yeah, I think it's for the type of person who's good with people. This is a people business. If someone does not like you, they will not sell you their company. And you've got to be able to adapt to the circumstances. So I've sat with sellers, and by the way, in some sectors, I don't wear a suit. I just wear jeans and a jumper. I'm appropriate to that sector. And I've had people get a little bit tearful. These are sellers getting a little bit tearful. I've had people hug me at meetings because it's an emotional process. And I think you've got to be respectful of that. So I think you need to realise there's hard work and there's effort. It's not press an app on your phone and make money while you sleep. You've actually got to put some effort in this, but the effort is worth it because there could be millions of pounds at the end of it. So I'm very happy to put that effort into it. And I think you've got to be good with people. You've got to be a people person. You've got to be understanding of people's emotions when they're selling. It can be quite an emotional roller coaster for them. But I also think you've got to have some common sense around the numbers. You don't have to be a financial whiz by any means. I'm certainly not. I can find my way around a balance sheet, but that's just through practice and experience. However, I think what you've got to be able to do is have the right team behind you and got to be able to look at a deal and say, is this a good deal or not? And don't worry about saying no, because there'll always be another one. And then all you need really, one business acquisition can change your life. Just buying one business, one deal can have a life-changing effect. Whether that life-changing effect is buying the holiday home, paying off the mortgage, putting the children through private school, whatever it might be, one deal can have that impact. And if that impact isn't coming from the business that you own now, maybe look for that acquisition because that could be the turning point.
It's been an absolutely fascinating show. We've talked a lot about the team that's behind you. Is that where there is some cost, though? So we look about purchasing a brand new business, and of course we go in there and it pays, we pay it in stages over a period of time. Mm-hmm. But is that where we've got to have a good team behind us? So every one of these acquisitions is actually going to cost us because we're doing due diligence, because we need the lawyers. It's the expenses of actually doing it.
It's a good question. Well, let me tell you how we handle this. The expenses, the due diligence, your accountants, there's going to be some legal fees. Obviously, we understand there's always going to be legal fees. There's always going to be legal fees with everything that you do. Well, I get my team to invoice the company that I'm buying after I've bought it. So I don't pay this out of my own pocket. The company that I buy funds the acquisition fees.
Wow. That's what somebody just whispered. Wow. Listen, it's been a real insight. It's been a fascinating hour, and it's flown by like that. It has been really interesting. If you want to find out more about Jonathan J, go to his website, the Deal Makers Academy. Quick look at the site again. There it is. Go there, download the book, How to Buy and Sell Great Businesses. Go on one of the courses, 4-hour seminar. February dates, there must be some March dates there, I would imagine. £99 plus VAT. Is it going to be worth a couple of hours of your time to go along and find out? Jonathan, at the end of every program, we always ask our guests to say who they are and to give us the key takeaways from the program, the key things. So it's really like a summary of what we've just said. Straight down camera number 4, the one that's over there. Who you are, where you're from, and what the key things are that we need to remember, and the things that perhaps today could be the beginning of change of our lives. The airwaves are all yours.
Okay, so I'm Jonathan J from the Deal Makers Academy, and for the last 20 years I've bought and sold businesses. And what I do now is help business owners acquire other businesses without risking their own money. And that's really, really important, because people think that their ability to buy a business is based upon their ability to access capital either from their own bank account or borrow money from the bank and secure it against their house. I never let anyone do that. What we're going to do is we're going to buy a business, maybe your competitor, a complementary business, a similar business, the same business as yours in a different part of the country or even a different country. And we're going to do it without risking your own capital. We're going to de-risk the transaction so that you never overpay for it. And we're going to take your business from where it is now to where you want it to be, not in the next 5-10 years that your business plan might say, but in the next 12 to 24 months.
Blimey, I don't know about you, I'm just blown away. I hope you've really enjoyed today's show. I found it fascinating. And if you're sitting there at the moment, you think to yourself, yep, I can do that. Well, listen, as I said, go to his website, find out a little bit more about Jonathan J. And who knows, it could be a absolutely game changer in the way that you approach business in your lifetime. Jonathan, thank you very much indeed for being with us today on Business Connections Live.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Well, what a great show that was. Coming up, future programs, we've got Mike Sims who's going to be joining us in here. He's going to be talking about the brand workshop. That's going to be with Mike. We've got Michael Brook. Now, have you ever thought about putting an online course, a little bit of passive income? Michael's an expert at this. He's going to be talking about professional excellence and sales training online. So you can find out more about that program. It's going to be a good show with Michael. Angus Grady will be on. He is the LinkedIn Unlocker. He's going to be telling you how to get more from your prospecting on LinkedIn. We've got Deborah Hume, neuroscientist, and also HR expert as well. She's going to be with us on the program. She works for Minerva Engagement. But that really practically wraps up today's program. Hope you enjoyed today's show. We do it all again next Monday at 12 noon. Until we do it then, from myself, Steve Highland, and my guest today, Jonathan J. Have a great week. Bye for now. Bye-bye.